I thought you said it was a big glass.
Well, it is a big glass. Where's the stupid...
Do we have a code word for bathroom breaks?
If you wanted to take a bathroom break, go right ahead.
I wish there
While we're on air.
I wish there were 10 of them. Nobody got that, did they?
Probably not. But
And
anyway,
we're live.
I used to watch Monk.
Go to the bathroom, go right ahead, right now, right this moment, but I'm going to start, okay? Welcome to Inside Movies Galore. My name is David Strege. I run Movies Galore Milwaukee. We are having a great show tonight for you. We are going to be talking about the film, a Serbian film, which is directed by Srdjan Spasojevic, who also co-wrote it with Alexander Radivojevic.
Common spelling?
While you're trying.
But it is an art film, sort of about a down-and-out porn artist who ends up needing money and ending up being drafted into a snuff film. So, starting with Celeste, what did you think about this 2010 film, and when did you see it first, and what were your thoughts about it?
I first saw it probably a little more than 4 years ago. And it was shocking. So I watched it because I obviously heard of its reputation as being like the most difficult to watch movie ever, the worst movie ever to watch. So I was like, oh, I have to watch this. And there was one part I could not watch at the time because I had an infant. And it was just not a good time to be watching that. But I actually really enjoyed the movie, the rest of it.
Okay. Tito, when did you first see this film, and what are your thoughts of it now? And go ahead.
Well, I saw it about 5 years ago. I heard there was all kinds of talk about it on the internet. How you have to see this film. It's such a like when you watch it, it makes you want to turn your head. It's a real shocker, right? So I went ahead and I found it. I picked it up. I mean, it just starts out with a bang, right? The kid is watching a porno tape of his father in action. I mean, that's just how the movie starts out, right? And it really, depending on how you want to look at it, it doesn't get any better. It just keeps getting worse, right? But I give the mother a little credit. She went ahead and explained to the kid that it's basically a cartoon for grown-ups. She was explaining the porn to the kid, right? I never really thought of it that way, but I guess if you catch your 5 or 6 year old watching porn, maybe that's how you explain it to him. Yeah, it was definitely a vile film. I seen and heard maybe a couple years later about the director and what he was trying to get across. Basically, if you live in Serbia, he's trying to say that the government basically owns you and fucks you over from the day you're born until you die. That was the message I was told that he was trying to get across.
It didn't.
And I think well, I don't know. It's definitely a fuck movie, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could kind of see the symbolism that was supposed to be in there, but it was kind of difficult to parse out.
So, Dustin, when was this your first time?
Yes. So when you invited me on, I watched it for the first time. It'd been in my watch pile for an awful long time, and I finally dived into it.
So what did you think of it your first time?
It was different. It's a good start. I think I would agree with I've already forgotten your name. In my notes, I have wasted
Celeste.
no time trying to shock. So that was quite the intense start to the movie. I got the impression that it was sort of trying to push the envelope to the point where it was actually kind of funny sometimes, because it's like, wow, they're really doing this, huh? Yeah, they're doing it. It's like, better know what happens next. Yep, there it is. So it was quite the experience. It reminded me of when I first saw Necromantic, in terms of just like what it was attempting to do, or at least what I thought it was attempting to do. And I wouldn't say I would watch it again, but at least now I know what the conversation's about, and I could kind of see what they meant with the subtext that was supposed to be implied, but it didn't come over particularly well in the film. Like, you had to do some reading on it to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I see how that was supposed to make sense.
Well, I did not see this film in any theater. I had actually also heard about it on the internet about roughly 5 years ago or so, and I ended up picking it up one time and watching it, and there was definitely some parts that grossed me out in the film, and I would put it on my top 10 gross out films. Specifically for the part in the end where the end.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, the part where he didn't. He was having sex with his
son involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was really taboo subject matter that they brought in, that even like most people won't cross that line. They'll do a lot of other things, but that's one most people won't.
Well, I thought it's very established that there were like no rules whatsoever with this director. So it was like, I think in my notes I actually have, I bet I know who's under the sheet. Yep. So it didn't necessarily surprise me so much as it's like, well, I'm already expecting the worst from this director, and he did not. I hesitate to use the word disappoint, but he followed through. Let me put it that way.
Okay. So,
well, I think this film, I'd hate to jump all the way to the end already, but I think this film also had a pretty classic ending where they used the one bullet. Kind of maybe that symbolizes something else also. They use the one bullet to finish off the whole family off, basically.
Right.
When they're laying in the bed.
Like this one event ruined all their lives.
Exactly. And then at the very end, is basically they were still filming. They had a film crew there, and they were going to go ahead and start, almost as if they were going to start a part 2. And a couple of the goons were in there, and they were going to start with the young boy again.
Yeah, did anyone, because I watched it the second time, I totally saw some foreshadowing when they were talking about how the money would last through the end of his son's life.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. That's a good observation.
Because I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to be very long.
Right, exactly.
See, I thought the part where the wife was asking to be fucked by like one of his girls was somewhat somewhat entertaining because he would probably make love to her
in a very different way.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but then she asked for it, and she got it, right?
Right. Now, does anyone here think that there was a political statement behind the film?
I'm sure it was in there somewhere, but I didn't quite know enough about like Serbian history, and I didn't do the reading that I wanted to because I ran out of time. But from all the background I looked up on the film, that's definitely there somewhere.
Well, if that country's that bad, I already know. I'm glad I never going to live there. You know what I mean?
I thought the name was interesting because they were setting it as like a Serbian film, so it seemed like they were trying to say like this represents Serbia. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying I never want to live there, right?
No, definitely not.
They did make that statement in one of like the interviews I read about. That's why they chose that as the title. So something to do with like foreign financiers kind of coming in and making their own movies that misrepresent like the country. Which that seems like an interesting angle to explore, but I just didn't find enough content on it.
Well, I know that some people believe that that it had something to do with the country and the way it is in Serbia and whatnot, and some people believe that it had like some kind of political statement. So that's why I interjected the question. So, does anyone else?
I would say the story basically, sometimes we should touch on the stories a little bit. Basically, the guy was down on his luck, and he was just having a simple little life, right? And she kind of looked like it was definitely a loving family. And then, they pulled him back because she also mentioned that he had a degree from a university,
Right.
And they were going to head and bring him back in to let him make some money, right, and set his family up. So sometimes when people are down on their luck, they may do things that they wouldn't normally do as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing was
things.
he never got this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But he never got to actually read the contract to know what he was supposed to be doing. It was basically just a bunch of words, and then they said the amount of money. But I don't recall if they actually said how much he was going to be getting paid for that.
I don't either.
So he was a loving family, but then it turns doing vile things, which he didn't know he was doing them because he was drugged, right? So
Right.
he didn't
Near the end, yes.
Well, we don't know how much he was actually drugged because they started doing like flashbacks throughout the movie where he was thinking back on what he was doing, right, when he was kind of sober, and then he was having some dreams with that as well. But I think that other part that I'm trying to say is sometimes when people are down on their luck, you just really can't trust them either because they're just going to do anything to make that dollar, even though it looked like he had a simple, happy family.
Right. I mean,
escalating spiral of depravity.
Right. With the political stuff, it was like desperate people will do anything.
Right. And when he was drugged, he was probably drugged with some kind of.
Well, they drugged him with speed and something else. I forget what the other thing was, but I know speed had a combination in there.
Didn't they say something like bull
Animal,
testosterone or
like
something?
animal Viagra. Yeah, she's right.
Yeah, something like that. So you're definitely fucking a madman there. There's no doubt about it, right?
I wonder if that girl signed up for it, the one whose head he cut off. Like, was she getting paid? Did she volunteer to be in this movie?
She didn't seem very afraid, like when it was clearly about to happen.
I wondered about that.
She barely reacted at all.
Right.
That part kind of surprised me when that happened. I mean, I didn't expect that to happen entirely.
Like, I saw some Japanese movie a while ago where the premise was that basically tourists would pay large sums of money to people's families to have them so that they could like kill and eat the victim. And it made me think of that. It was, I can't remember the name of it. It was pretty lousy. It was a bad movie, but oh, I wish I could remember the name of it. I sold it forever ago. But it made me think of that kind of concept. It's like, you get paid an exorbitant amount of money, it goes to your loved ones, and then you get killed in the snuff film. So that's what that reminded me of.
I could see that.
In a way, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Hostel.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, because in Hostel, you got those people who ultimately pay like millions of dollars just to go beat people to death.
Well, you had that 8mm also with Nicolas Cage. Remember that film?
I remember it, but it's been quite some time since I've seen it.
Well, that's what that was. It was about making. It was about a snuff film, and they actually found when they were talking to the guy that was in the film that was doing the torturing and stuff for the snuff part. When Nicolas Cage was basically gonna finish him off, and a lot of people want to know, well, like, why did you do this? Were you abused as a child? And the guy simply said, "I just enjoy it."
Huh.
It's like that speech from True Blood from like one of the villains. Because I like it. It gets my dick hard.
Yeah, but it was so easy and disturbing the way he said it, right? I like it. You know what I mean? Just simple, right? He wasn't going for any excitement. It was just so matter of fact, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That delivery can work really well with the right actor. So that's a good moment.
So, any case, Dustin was mentioning earlier something about the score that he definitely noticed that the score had something to do with the moments. What did you guys think of the score?
I like the score.
Yeah,
I like
fine.
the score. It's good.
It didn't stand out to me.
I think I just really like synthwave music, and so it had kind of hints of that, and so it was like, oh, that sounds cool. Like little moments, kind of like that. Otherwise, it was just like a standard. There was very little music in the film.
Yeah, to me, it's just totally forgetful. Honestly,
So, Dane, what did you
give it a second thought?
What did you think of a Serbian film? And was this your first time seeing it? Dane?
Oh, hi. Sorry, I'm on now. What did I think of a Serbian film? Yeah, this was my first time seeing it, and I'd heard a lot about it ever since it came out. How could you not? Because it was everywhere. Never saw it. Never really got my hands on it because it was just kind of hard to come by. Finally ordered it off of Amazon recently, decent price on Blu-ray, which I'm glad I did because it was it's not really easy to find anymore. Saw it, and honestly, it didn't really shock me. I mean, it had shocking scenes and shocking content, for sure, but I think the first half was kind of boring, and once it actually gets to the really shocking stuff, you can tell it's trying to be shocking, and it's trying it to be shocking, and so what you're left with is something that perhaps does have political implications to it, but doesn't quite know way to make its points.
Now, you mentioned the Blu-ray. I know that the Blu-ray was actually cut. I don't know if you have an uncut version of the Blu-ray, but there was a few things that were probably a little bit more disturbing that didn't make the cut on the Blu-ray that was released several years ago. So, I mean, it makes a little bit of difference, but not really. It just kind of like leaves out like the newborn porn really wasn't in there. They kind of mentioned it, but you didn't see any of it. I don't know if that would make a difference when you watch the film. To me, it didn't make a huge difference. It just added more like shock value in it. But you kind of already got the picture of it if you got the cut part of cut film.
The newborn part was the one I couldn't watch at the time. This time I could.
Well, I had heard of that scene before I saw it, and so I was kind of like wondering, all right, how are they going to handle this? Is it going to be comedic? Is it going to be like a cutaway?
How do you make that comedic?
Could you imagine Mel Brooks doing that?
Over the top.
That's comical.
Well, you could think back to like the Natural Born Killers scene where they have the laugh track over the Rodney Dangerfield scenes. I thought it was going to happen.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I mean, I didn't know how they were actually going to handle what they were going to show, and I thought they did it probably in the most tasteful way possible, just like with tons of cutaways, and not really showing you anything. Just the guy, and it's like, hooray, it's this thing, and it's like, you weirdo, oh my god.
I don't know that it's not really cutaways.
The version I saw, they flash of like the baby being born
You
and
see-
like some guy, and then they cut away.
Oh no, they actually show it. They
We
show
should
the baby
also make
coming
clear
out.
that there are a lot of there are a lot of versions
Yeah.
of the movie out there.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely the uncut is the one that shows with.
Yeah.
Well,
So yeah, so that'd be the one you've seen, but like the one I just revisited again today. Yeah, it's definitely not cut away.
So,
all right then.
Dane, what did you think of the? Did you think that this film had something to do with the porn industry in Serbia, or do you think that it had a political?
Well, I mean, I think it's
aspect?
both. I mean, I think it's both because one of the things that I think was fairly clear about this, well, what this film was saying about the Serbian film industry, or in this case, the pornographic film industry, is well, something that, you know, especially with a lot of Central and Eastern European women, a lot of them, or not a lot, but there's, you know, the stories about the ones who are able to, you know, come over through, you know, experience in pornography. And but in this case, the porn star is a man. But I mean, it's the same kind of thing as this kind of ridiculous wish fulfillment kind of scenario that we start off with, where he's speaking English. So it's sort of this Europe trying to fake America, you know, in the beginning, and yet it's the main point about the country of Serbia in terms of the film industry side of things is that Serbia is this dying country, and Vukmir is going to make Serbia great again, essentially. And well, yeah, I mean, that's basically the whole idea, is that Serbia is this dying country that looks down on them, that their films are not taken seriously, but that if Vukmir introduces this real, raw, you know, purely intimate, not fake form of cinema, then that not only makes Serbia great again, at least cinematically, but it also just introduces newness into a world that is devoid of it, which is part of what Spasojevic's point was. Part of it was in making the film was about attacking political correctness, as well as you know, speaking about the fact that, in his opinion, that Serbia, not, you know, that it isn't what he would like it to be in terms of being taken seriously, and in his opinion, that Serbia's had, you know, the people in Serbia have been witness to a lot of monstrous political atrocities in the recent past, you know.
So
Okay.
Hey Dave, did you learn anything about the film, or did you learn anything while you watched the film?
Did I learn anything while I watched the film? Well,
Yes.
when I first saw it, I learned when I was first watching it, I was watching a lot of extreme films that were out there at the time, and this one, along I think, along with like Human Centipede 2, you know, the Martyrs, you know, so I was watching some of these films along the same time, but there were definitely some shock moments for me, like the part where where Milo is fucking the one chick, and her head either he cuts her head off or whatnot. That kind of surprised me.
He
And
totally
then,
cuts her head off.
Yeah, he got that up.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, he was in such rage they put that knife in his hand because he was already punching her, and it was just a natural reaction, right? He just went for the chop.
Well, they got him
Well, yeah.
so cranked on drugs. I mean, here you go. Do
I mean, it just was just one shock moment after another at the time, and I thought in my mind that it definitely it definitely did its job to shock me at the time, at least halfway through the film.
I'd say I learned not to go to Serbia ever.
I learned I have a strong constitution.
I learned that it's easier to skull fuck somebody when they're already missing their eye.
You know, I think that would be more difficult for me, but I could see the appeal.
I didn't even bat an eye out at that point. It was like, all right, we've already gone so incredibly far. Just, yep, that's happening. Okay, sure.
Yeah, the thing is, with a Serbian film, you never know how far a country will go in a horror film. And I think at the time when this came out, it was definitely shocking to a lot of people, which was why it was banned in so many countries at the time. And I mean, you got to think about the baby raping, the child molestation, the acts of cruelty that.
You know, I'm not even sure.
I'm
not sure that this is actually a horror film, to be honest with you. I would like to see what Dane thinks about that.
I personally thought it was an experiment in how far they could push it. Sorry.
I think it was an exploitation.
Yeah, I mean, you could. Well, here's the thing: it occupies the same of. Because here's the bigger question before we get to that question is this an art house film or is it a grindhouse film? Because to me, I think it's shot like a grindhouse film. Now, granted, a very well produced one because the shots are well composed, you know, and all that kind of stuff. It has a grindhouse aesthetic to it, to me, and yet I think that the points it's trying to make an attempt at an art house points, but I think it falls into too many grindhouse traps that it can't quite satisfy them completely.
Would you consider it almost a snuff film?
Yeah, I mean, it's about as close as a fiction movie can get to a snuff film in effect. But as far as whether or not it's a horror film, I think that it kind of occupies the same realm as Sallow, as Antichrist, which is like Lars von Trier's Antichrist. You know, these films that are horror, quote unquote horror, in the sense that they're so shocking and disturbing, but they don't have supernatural elements. They tend to be pretty grounded. And it's just more that they get lumped in horror because people don't really know what else to call it. The events that happen are certainly horrific, and they speak to the horror of the world because the stuff that happens in the film is not, I mean, it's a little exaggerated, but it's not as exaggerated as one may think, because as horrible as it is, newborn babies get abused explicitly and for life, every day. It's just a horrible thing to think about, but it's the truth. And it's the horror of life in a way.
I couldn't.
And
sorry, I couldn't figure out why they added that creepy brother that was obsessed with him and his family.
I think he was obsessed with the wife, actually, right?
Yeah, but he was obsessed with all of them.
It was him with the wife at the end, I think.
I had a theory about that, actually, about why they had him in there. So I think that, he's there to contrast with his brother, who's a porn star, but he's kind of losing his edge. And so he's just an ordinary, he's a police officer, presumably a man of the law. But if, again, in Serbia, the are so turbulent, and what may be a good man of the law one day may not necessarily be that tomorrow. So there's that, the fact that he's envious of his brother. He wants to live he wants to live the fantasy that his brother is selling, because that's ultimately what his career is based on, is a fantasy. He's living the fantasy, and in so doing, he succumbs to the horror, and is a willing participant in the horror as opposed to being a
victim
and being tricked into it. He buys into it full sail.
Yeah.
Like, he welcomes it. Like, you can tell earlier in the scenes where he's watching the family that, this is the kind of life he wants, and so he's he's got like this vicarious thing going on, and when he gets an opportunity to actually live that in some way, like he just takes it.
Well, that and if you political overtones of the film, which, in my opinion, they're definitely there, but they don't really translate that well to an international audience unless you've done your research first. But after having done some research about political turbulence in Serbia and about, ethnic cleansing and just the fact they've been at war with so many countries over the time that they've been a country, the idea being that the law, a police officer, or someone that you're supposed to trust, that he can so willingly and so, with throwing so much caution to the wind, can become a willing participant to the horror and can participate in it so with such relish. I think there's a commentary there for sure.
I think that kind of speaks to how a lot of people feel about police now. I don't, but I know a lot of people mistrust police, and there's sort of this theme going around that you can't trust authority figures.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this makes it explicit,
I think that happens because over time there have been so many cases of mistreatment with cases handled, police not arriving at the specific time. There are definitely like nowadays, an ambulance can't show up until a police officer has arrived. Sometimes they don't arrive exactly on time.
Right.
So there are so many restrictions and laws. I mean, it used to be that they could just go up to the accident and do whatever they needed. But there have been so many backlashes, like ambulance drivers killed and all that kind of jazz. They kind of can't rescue you on time as much anymore because of us. We pretty much ruined that privilege of being able to get rescued from any kind of a situation.
There's definitely a theme throughout of people in authority not, presumably being ones you can trust, but not proving to be worthy of your trust. Like with his brother, like with Vukmir himself, having been a child psychologist from the state, according to his limited background, which his backstory is sort of, it's very assume that something happened to him when he went on his secret mission or whatever.
Yeah, apparently, but
it's that idea that he was a man of authority looking over the most innocent of people, children, and then whatever happened to him, and then he comes back and he, in his quest to make Serbia great again, he contributes to the ultimate modern voyeuristic terror, that there is.
Alrighty, so does anyone have any particular scene that they enjoyed the most in the film?
I don't know if enjoyed.
Is it wrong to say that I? Oh, you go ahead.
I just made the comment. I don't know if enjoyed is the appropriate word, but I have 3 pages of notes. So talk away, and I'll look.
So, Dane, what was your enjoyment out of the...
Well, I would say that unlike Sallow, that we talked about the other night, where I would definitely put this film in that same category of ones that I didn't necessarily enjoy, quote unquote, in the entertaining sense. Wasn't necessarily supposed to, because there's plenty of great films out there that are about harsh subject matter that you're not really supposed to enjoy, quote unquote. But unlike Sallow, I think that there were more enjoyable scenes, quote unquote, in this film than there were in Sallow, which was actually the opening scene where our hero's son is watching his dad's porno film accidentally, which I don't know about you, but it was presented in such a way that I couldn't help but find it kind of funny, just because the kid's expression he looks like his brains are about to drool out of his ears, you know, just because he doesn't understand what he's watching. But it just, I don't know what that part did kind of make me laugh, and but it's like the only part of the film that I think could presumably make one laugh. But it's mostly just the kid's expression. It was just so brain dead and sort of mesmerized but confused, and it's just a beautiful expression of something that it reminded me of something I would have seen in a Todd Solondz film or something.
I laughed a few times.
Well, what did you have any favorite scene in the film?
Oh, well, for me, after he accepts the job and he has kind of like that training montage where he's like meditating and a few other things. I thought that was really funny. I thought that was great.
I like that close up they had where he's trying to get it up in that meditative way, and you get that close up of the Jack Daniels bottle.
Yeah.
It's the kryptonite to his secret weapon, you know.
Alrighty, Celeste, did you have any favorite scene in the film?
You know, both times I watched it, my favorite scene was the one with the girl in bed where he hacks her head off with the machete. I just really like that scene.
Dark.
For some reason, I do too. I mean, it's from the moment it starts and the moment it ends. It's just I don't know why, but it is definitely entertaining to watch. Just the full sequence of him being drug induced.
Yeah, I just like the way it's shot. I like it. I don't know. I just really like everything about that scene.
Tito?
I don't know that I had a favorite. I just kind of mentioned it earlier when the kid was watching his father's porn tape and the mother explained that it's just an adult cartoon. I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, the rest of the movie, I can say I've watched it now at least twice. But it's really not. It's just not for me, really. It's a pretty sick and disgusting film. If you look at it on the surface, you can say there's a meaning behind it and what he's trying to get across, the director. But it's pretty vile. I mean, I think we all kind of admit that.
I agree with that. Like, I deleted it from my computer right when I was done with it. It's like, I don't want this around.
It is definitely vile, but I would definitely watch it again.
All right, you sick fuck.
I'm sure this won't be my last time.
I would say this, that I would probably be more inclined to watch it again. Certainly not right away. The probability that I would watch it again is higher than the probability I would watch Sallow again, just because Sallow, it's far less explicit, but it creates such an atmosphere of hopelessness that it takes a while for me to recover from. It really does. This a Serbian Film, I got over it as soon as I was done, quite frankly.
Yeah, same here. Like, I thought a lot of it was just flat out goofy. I almost fell out of my chair laughing at that end scene. It's like, like they're still filming.
It tipped the ridiculous scale pretty strong, and I know it. Which, to be fair, here's a fun little discussion for the group. In America, we have our extreme cinema, quote unquote, which usually entails Saw or Hostel, which is always about torture and violence. It doesn't really cross into sexuality in quite the same way as the Europeans like to explore, like or things that could be vaguely sexual. So like Human Centipede, Serbian Film, Sallow, Antichrist. You know, they don't. Our American cinema doesn't really go there. We go to town on the violence, but not so much extreme sexual abuse, you know. So I find that very interesting. Agree with you there with a Serbian Film, the climax. It reminded me a bit of a Saw film in the sense of like it gets so extreme that it goes past disturbing and gets into just ridiculous territory.
That's a good assessment. I'd agree with that.
I would agree with that as well, in the sense that it definitely had a sense of ridiculousness. But
when you want something to be disturbing, you have to keep it grounded enough, because otherwise it just turns into a cartoon. you know, and it just all depends on how it's done. Because like, why is A Clockwork Orange so disturbing? It's because they go far enough with the ideas, and it's not about how gory can you be. It's what does it all mean? And I feel like with the Serbian film, there are hints of what it all means, but it's not.
It's not implicit enough.
No, it wouldn't be that readily apparent to non-Serbs, you know. And again, that's why you have to do your research in order to get kind of what they were going after. Because if you're in France, if you're in Germany, if you're in America, Australia, wherever you are, you know your own country's history and politics, and they just don't do that great a job of explaining it to those who don't already know, who don't live in Serbia, and who don't see what Spasojevic sees.
The message was definitely lost on me, like the intent.
Mm-hmm.
And who's to say that there was an entire message in the film other than that of an abstract thought?
And there may not have even been. I mean, there's movies and art, you know, generally speaking, we like there to be more underneath the surface, but then sometimes things are just what they are, so it's up to the viewer to make that determination.
Well, I believe Unearthed Films is going to be releasing this film again with a documentary to go along with it. It's probably going to give a lot of background and a lot of more explanation on the film itself.
I am looking forward to that documentary. Like, I would like to know more about, you know, what's actually supposed to have been going on, because it seems like a lot of times with these things. Well, I'm just going to give an example. So I have this book that's a bunch of essays on horror movies. And so in the introductory essay, it talks about how the opening scene of Jaws is shot as a rape-like event, and how like the shark like just attacks the girl. And then a couple paragraphs later, it talks about how Jaws is misogynist because the men gather to hunt the feminine sea monster. And it's like, well, wait, what? Huh? How does that make sense? And so sometimes I think people see things that aren't really there when they try to interpret movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just kind of makes me pause and think about that. So I would like to know from the director's own mouth, you know, did he intend any of this intense symbolism? You know, just tell us what you had in mind.
Well, there are some
quotes.
There are some quotes that he's given about that, like about how it was attacking political correctness in Serbia, about how it was talking about the way that the Serbian government abuses its people from the cradle to the grave. About the writer was saying how, you know, in Europe there are these art films that you can't really get shown or seen unless they have a victim in it, so they kind of took it to the extreme. One thing I'd like to put on the record is non-Serbs wouldn't necessarily know this, but the actors involved in the film are apparently pretty big names in their home country. And so they were putting a lot on the line to do a movie like this and to make it as extreme as they did in some form or fashion.
Okay, that's a good argument. I can buy into that.
Mm-hmm. Which, again, I'm just quoting what I've heard from official sources, but that's where a good documentary would hopefully provide even more supplemental information.
That's exactly why I'm excited to see it, if it ever comes to pass.
I think those who are fans of the film and those who may not be fans might actually be interested into seeing what the director could say, or his co-director or writer on the film, exactly what they had intended originally to begin with.
Yeah, this would be definitely a movie that I would be interested in checking out the special features on if they put the documentary in there. Because a lot of times I'll watch films, and then certain films will make me say, let me check out the special features. Other movies, I can just go past them. But this one would be more where I would definitely be leaning towards looking at the documentary.
All righty.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I've gotten to the point in collecting movies that I almost prefer the special features to the movie. Like, I'm interested in kind of the from concept to execution phase of films at this point. And so I'd really like to know just what went into this. I mean, I did read some of those interviews where he talked about, you know, the message that he intended to get across and kind of what his purpose was. And I made the point earlier that sometimes it seems like that's just simply projection, but I don't think that was really the case in this film. So I just want to know more about like what was on the director's mind.
And Celeste, if we didn't watch the special features, we wouldn't know Tiny fucked a stump, right?
Exactly.
Well, and that's assuming that the company that put it out on DVD and Blu-ray, that they're even good enough to put special features on there. I can't stand that when I get on DVD or
Damn
Blu-ray.
you, Lionsgate. I just wanted to say.
See, and I like some of the special features on some of the films that I watched too. I mean, I remember that a lot of people hated the 2005 version of the Planet of the Apes. Well, I actually enjoyed it, and I loved the behind the scenes of that film because they actually took all of the actors, even the extras, and put them through apes.
Yeah,
And
I actually like that movie too.
Is that the one with Wahlberg?
Jumping and
The Burton remake, right?
You see
Yeah.
them mimicking characteristics of the apes and whatnot. So I definitely enjoy some of the special features behind some of the films, especially some of the films with like scenery and stuff like that.
I'll tell you, on that subject, if you guys want to learn a lot about filmmaking, like the craft of filmmaking, if you listen to the director's commentary for Michael Bay movies, you actually learn quite a bit about cinematography, about, you know, the way his brain works. You know, there's a lot of very interesting filmmaking lessons to learn. I'm usually, whenever I want to learn something that you wouldn't normally hear from like film school or something, those are good director commentaries to put on.
Oh, really? I mainly go through, say, for recent examples like Shout Factory and Arrow Films commentaries.
Yeah, they're good. They're good too.
So, you know, it's about, you know, this is why I chose to film from this angle. You know, this is why we did this. It's like, oh, we had this helicopter fly us in beer. That's from The Thing. All of that information like is almost more interesting than the movie, and I only pick something up if it has strong special features. Oh. Alrighty.
Well, I'm going to wrap this discussion up here. And go in a circle. Ask you to tell you where you're from, Celeste. Why don't you tell us what you do and go
All
from
right,
there.
I'm Celeste. I'm a co-host on the horror host TV show Dedgar's Dark Coffin Classics with the host Dedgar Winter and another co-host Maliva Ravik. We're a weekly horror host TV show. We show old movies, independent movies, and if you're not in our viewing area, which is in Wisconsin mostly, but we're also shown in areas of California, I think we're picked up all over, so I can't really give you details. We never really know when we're going to be shown. But if you want to watch some stuff from online, we're on Vimeo at vimeo.com/ddcc. And I'm also the host for the Glamour Junkies Burlesque Troupe in Milwaukee.
Neat.
Awesome. Dane, why don't you tell us what you do and some of your information?
Yes. Well, first of all, sorry I kind of jumped in late there. Sorry to you and to the viewers. So yeah, I am Dane Kyle, writer, director, based out of Charlotte, North Carolina at the moment. You can check me out on YouTube. Look for my YouTube channel, The Dane Kyle, DaneKeil. You can find my short films that I've made, like the German expressionist silent film that I made, Eternus, as well as the trailer for the upcoming film noir tribute that I did called The Big Blind. So yeah, follow me there on Facebook, Twitter, anywhere you can find me. And yeah, I love to converse with you about filmmaking and, you know, our collective love of films.
Alrighty, Dustin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you don't have entirely as much background as us, but
So, I've lived in Milwaukee for a couple years. I go to UWM. My primary interests are biology. I wrote a paper on reptiles and monster movies that actually got published on a website called The Reptile Report. I kind of picked horror movies up as an extra hobby, and I've been going pretty strong with it since. So, yeah, I just watch movies for a lot of my days while I write papers. So.
Don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
And I am out of wine.
I like to go on bike rides. Sometimes I watch movies. I like to sit here and listen to these experts talk about the movie, so I'm glad to have me in Movies Galore. Thanks, Dave.
Definitely.
And he likes red wine and long walks on the beach.
How do you know what kind of wine I drink? Get out of my mind.
I've seen your Grinder profile.
Wait, what?
And my name is David Streggy. I run Movies Galore, Milwaukee. I'm somewhat. I write reviews, and I have. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, and I guess I'm becoming a somewhat producer of sorts, but. I helped put together this group, and hopefully we can have fun with the films that we talk about. I think we definitely have a good group to talk with, and hopefully we build a fan base so that maybe we can eventually get these audios of us.
Get these audio discussions out to a wider audience. So,
correct.
Thanks for listening, by the way.
Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed our broadcast, and see us or hear us next Tuesday. We're doing Suspiria, and we're adding another dead girl, and possibly a friend of Dane's, from what I understand.
Yes.
So stay tuned, and have a great rest of your evening, folks.